Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars. SoundCartel. From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. This episode is your quintessential David versus Goliath tale of a local innovator taking on the multinationals. In 2021, during the height of COVID, Bill Scardigno and Corey White founded Adelaide-based the Hygiene company, manufacturing bio-degradable plastic-free wet wipes called CleanLIFE. And it's flying off supermarket shelves and being used by increasingly more hospitals around the country. Phil and Corey are passionate about local manufacturing and looking after the environment. Traditional wet wipes, Phil explains to Chris Ashmore, contain polyester, polypropylene and microplastics, none of which are found in CleanLIFE wipes.
Our product has a fibre that's plant-based. We also make a flushable fabric wipe, and I know that people think flushables, you can't flush wipes, and they are correct when they are the fabric kind, but there are flushable fabrics that we utilise and produce that are certified. So our products do differ from what's the standard big branded items that are out there, being biodegradable and compostable, and a flushable grade as well that we have. And so we've got different applications for different types of wipes. And
Phil, you were running a company your dad founded, which manufactured non-solvent waterproofing treatments for buildings. And I understand you completely reconditioned that manufacturing plant for a punt into wet wipes. Did anyone tell you at the time that you may be a bit crazy?
Yeah, that came up commonly, still does. Sometimes I have a quiet moment and think about it myself, how crazy it was. But look, I got to a point in my previous business where I'd done everything I felt I could. I kept saying to Corey, this business found us, and the opportunity was there. When we discovered the numbers of tonnage that's wasted per year and ends up in landfill from plastic wipes, we felt very passionate about trying to make a change. And it was a fairly easy decision from there. Once that focus was there, it wasn't such a crazy idea. It was just something that had to be done and never really looked back.
And you started the business during COVID. There were supply issues, I understand. What was the story behind getting the equipment to Adelaide?
International travel wasn't able to be happening at that time. So this type of automation equipment wasn't locally available. We'd done our homework on where the players were around the world that we could access, and we found a supplier in Europe. It was all done over video conferencing and Zoom calls at the time, and the constraints were the tyranny of distance, really. But the show had to go on for us. We understood what we wanted. It's amazing business enterprise during COVID, what companies still do, and we carried on with that project. And then at the back end of COVID, we had one of our staff that could get over to Italy to review the equipment and have a look at it, and that was really how it was done. The difference would have been that Corey and I probably would have got over there early to have a chat about the machinery and equipment and plant, but we just weren't willing to wait. So the choice was to throw that leap of faith out there and pursue the path that we've pursued.
You're competing with huge established overseas brands like Dettol. Was that daunting for you at any time, or is it just something that you had to ignore and just get on with it?
I always think, Chris, that's almost more of an opportunity than a threat. Going back to my previous business, we were a niche supplier competing against multinationals, and we always exceeded in customer service. But then in our case, manufacturing here, we have really strong competitive advantages that are becoming more desirable day by day, especially after COVID, like Australian-made, using Australian ingredients. One thing that a lot of people don't realise is 75% of a wet wipe pack is water. So, we're using Australian purified water in our wipes rather than an imported water that's being shipped around the world. So there's not really a feeling of threat there. If anything, it's, an advantage in our favour.
And who do you sell to? Is it households as well as hospitals?
Yeah, all of the above. So hospitals with our TGA-approved wet wipe brand, CleanLIFE Medical, but also into retailers and pharmacy chains and the likes as well, through to households.
Now, you received a federal grant earlier this year, quite a bit of money. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, look, when the idea first came out about creating a wet wipe plant here in Australia and what we were doing, everyone was saying to us, oh, you're a no-brainer for grant monies. At the time, there was the modern manufacturing grant that was issued by the Morrison government. We tried 2 goes at that and bombed out, which was really unfortunate because we thought what we were creating and what we were doing was going to be a certainty, and we've had a significant investment to do what we're doing. And then we were part of the AMGC group in terms of just subscribing and working through that network of manufacturers around the country, and then there were grants that we could apply for, and we were successful in getting a grant at a stage about the whole sustainability part of what we were doing. And manufacturers in Australia, there's a significant investment to make a business happen. So that grant was very much welcomed by us because it did help us and support us in some of our capital investment. And it's great to see bodies like the AMGC getting behind local manufacturers around the country to sort of initiate and encourage manufacturing, particularly if there's a point of innovation or a point of difference there.
Well, it's unusual to hear a success story in manufacturing these days. What do you say to those who claim that manufacturing is dead in Australia?
Look, I think from my end, I've been in manufacturing for 30 years, and South Australia particularly has always been a strong state. But, I remember those times when we had the car manufacturing industry sort of go south, and it was a dirty word, manufacturing, for a period before COVID. But if anything, what I've learnt myself, and I haven't even spoken to Corey about this, but from my end, we're so focused on the sustainable piece of what we're doing. And I think for us to be a fully fledged country that's really eco-sustainable, we need to encourage local manufacturing, because you think about the things we bring in, and I'm talking some of the common items. Like Corey mentioned the amount of water that's in wet wipes, but things like bottled water and detergents and liquids that are 90% plus water, shipped over to Australia. We're bringing shiploads of carbon in on the way over. We need to be a country that can rely on its own. I think COVID's also taught us that. So I think if we're not making commodities, Australia's still a really good country to manufacture. And I think it's really important for governments to get behind manufacturers to encourage that. There's automation. There's a lot of exciting technologies for young people to get involved with now with manufacturing. It's not just making a widget and off it goes. There's a lot that manufacturers can contribute to the economy and the future of many young people in this country.
I think supporting that as well, Chris, COVID certainly exposed, a lot of the supply shortfalls, as we know, especially in the medical industry. So there's definitely an increase in appetite for Australian-made in a lot of categories.
Indeed. Well, where to from here? What's the future look like for the Hygiene Company and CleanLIFE? Phil?
We're really excited about building our brands. So we've built a capability that we can help onshore manufacturing for other companies with products that were getting made overseas and brought here. And we're involved in a bit of that with our current plant. But we see the technologies in the sustainable types of fabrics that we can bring to market in the consumer area. Also in the medical space, we've got 5 products now that we've got listed with the TGA and looking to add to that. And really seeing where we can drive costs down for the general everyday products that consumers are taking off the shelf in supermarkets that are locally made. And I mean, in the past, people think anything that's green friendly is going to cost you more, but we're seeing that we can actually start to compete with the plastic-based materials that are out there. And I think as time goes on and where we're seeing the trends around the world, things that are plastic and carbon abusive are going to cost more, and that'll bring a bit more parity between what is more sustainable, and hopefully governments get behind encouraging the green-friendly manufacturers and products out there to support that. And we really see a bright future from our end in that part. I'm not sure what you're thinking, Corey. With
absolutely. And the manufacturing for some other brands is a really interesting area as well. When we do some calculations on even just a category like baby wipes, and we have pretty reliable data that shows us there's over 5 billion baby wipes used in Australia each year, which pretty much all contain plastic. it just absolutely obliterates it when we compare it to straws or plastic plates. So we know there's plenty of opportunity in helping other companies switch over to plastic-free and Australian-made that are currently importing as well.
Absolutely. Well, before we go, and for anyone listening to this who are perhaps daunted about growing their business and competing with bigger players, any words of advice or encouragement?
Look, you've always got to do your homework and do some market research on what your idea is. You mentioned before the big brands like Dettol and Pino Clean that we were facing, and everyone's going, oh, these are major Goliaths that you're not going to beat. But like Corey said, I think look where the opportunity is. These days there is an appetite for uniqueness, and you just got to find that piece. But if you, from a manufacturing side, if you can produce something that people want, there's more than likely a market and opportunity for you to create a business from it.
That was Phil Scardigno and Corey White, co-founders of the Hygiene company. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow at BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.